Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Watchers Digital Network. We're doing a Horror Watchers episode tonight. We have a pretty cool guest who's going to talk about some movie stuff with us. And you know the drill. As
Movie.
always, we're gonna kick it over to him after our intro.
Man, that breakdown is sick.
I don't know.
I didn't even realize that they played instruments.
Yeah, it's a pretty
Yeah,
killer
it
band.
costs extra.
Yeah, you learn
I
something every. I don't know when they find time to learn with all the killing that they're doing, but I mean, hey, we all get a little extra time now and then.
Drew
Well,
made a pun. He said
they
they're a killer band.
they really just noodle around. It's
All right, that's the end. Thanks everybody for watching. See you later.
All right, thanks. I appreciate.
Uh,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, that was good. It was the best one we've ever done.
Yeah.
It's just to yeah, I warned our guests, but to warn our listeners and any of the people watching on our YouTube, I have a baby now, and so all of our future episodes here may or may not have a baby involved. So tonight is the inaugural father-son edition because I have the baby here. So just a fair warning for everybody. I might have to dip out on my audio every once in a while, but so far so good. And with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to our guest for the evening and let him introduce himself and what brings him to the show tonight.
My name is PJ Starks. I'm a writer, director, producer, mainly producing. I'm the co-owner of Blood Moon Pictures, and then you check us out at bloodmoonpictures.com. And I'm native of Owensboro, Kentucky. And that's really I've done a bunch of different films. The four we've done here: Volumes of Blood Horror Stories, 13 Slays Till Christmas, and then most recently it's New Fear's Eve, which is our holiday horror slasher film that just recently finished its award-winning festival tour. And yeah, so it took us all over from Houston to Chicago, Indianapolis, New York City. It was pretty incredible. And now we're in talks for distribution, and it's been a pretty interesting journey. I produce other projects and films. You can look me up on IMDb, of course. I mean, that's IMDb is once you start making films, IMDb very quickly loses its luster once you realize that like pretty much anybody can stick their name on anything.
Yeah,
But mine's pretty accurate. So if anybody's interested to see what I've worked on, you can check me out there. That's the best way to look at my filmography. And then of course on the Blood Moon Pictures website, I've got this super long-winded bio where you'll learn far more than you ever wanted to know about me.
excellent. Yeah, I hope everybody goes and checks that out. You're speaking my language, first of all, just right off the bat with the holiday themed horror. That is something that has always been very near and dear to me, like forever. It's always been one of my favorite subgenres. And it wasn't until you sent me those links earlier today that I realized I've seen 13 Slays. I think I watched it on Tubi. I don't know how many times. It's in my rotations. I had
That's
texted you
awesome.
that I do
Yeah.
a 25 days of Christmas horror during the Christmas season every year. Sometimes I try to do more. It's not just 25 movies. It's just like a play on the 25 days of Christmas thing. So
Right.
I have gone, the entire month from December, and sometimes I'll even start like for me, Christmas horror can start after Thanksgiving. And so, Thanksgiving doesn't have a whole lot of horror films dedicated to it. So I even go so far as to like I'll add Poultrygeist to that because it's adjacent, just kind of being poultry.
Right.
So yeah, every holiday that arises, I have a rotation of horror movies that I watch. So I'm pretty
That's pretty
excited.
cool.
I'm pretty excited for what is New Fear's Eve?
Yeah, New Fear's Eve. Yeah, it's so our last movie, 13 Slaves Till Christmas, it is an anthology. This new one is our first like a full feature narrative. And 2 seconds, this cat is driving me crazy. Get out.
Throws it. You hear it hit the wall.
Yeah, I know. But I usually abuse the animals, but I'm not going to do it on camera. So,
Fair.
but no, yeah, it's our first full feature narrative. So it's not an anthology. Eric Huskisson is my producing partner. So going into the project, we did want to do something different. Now I can say that the whole holiday shtick began with Volumes of Blood horror stories, and then honestly, it wasn't by design. Well, I say that technically, Volumes of Blood takes place on Halloween, so I guess really the shtick started there. But that's just because I love Halloween; it's my favorite holiday. So I never meant to continuously make films based around holidays. Like that was not the plan. But with the sequel to Volumes of Blood, we had to keep that going because it's connected. Now you can watch the second one without ever having seen the first one and still understand what's happening. But in order to switch things up, because I don't like rehashing the same thing every film. The decision was made to add additional holidays, but then we also did something a little different. Like one of the stories is a birthday. So even though it's technically not a holiday, it's kind of a personal holiday for everybody. And that's something that everybody can relate to for the most part, or most people can. Um, but what ended up happening is, so Nathan Thomas Milliner wrote and directed Fear for Sinners here in horror stories. And I would say Christmas is probably my second favorite holiday, but when we were filming it, and we filmed in July, but everything was, decked out to the hilt looking like Christmas. And it was just so much fun shooting something that was Christmas that as we continued on with horror stories, and this happens with every project. I'll come up with an idea at some point, and I'll go to Eric and I'll say, "Hey, I've got this great idea for this project here," and he's like, "Oh fuck, can we not finish this movie before we start the next movie?" So he's like, "Look," so I came to him. I said, "I got this idea for a movie called 13 Slaves Till Christmas," and I was kind of working out what the concept was at the time, and he's like, "No, let's focus on this for right now." So I shelved 13 Slaves. We tried to get the third Volumes of Blood, which was called Devil's Night, up and going. Could not get the financing for it, and then because of that, I made the decision I started spearheading the production of 13 Slaves and the concept. And I went to Eric and I said, "Look, let's do this." And he was like, "Well, how about because we've been working on this, Devil's Night for so that's the third Volumes of Blood was called Devil's Night." He was like, "Let's work on that, or I'll work on that. You work on 13 Slaves, whichever one has traction in the next few months. That's the direction we'll go." And 13 Slaves won, and then we ended up making 13 Slaves Till Christmas. So, I mean, that's the one thing, like doing independent film. I know you said that that you're a filmmaker. Are you both filmmakers or just?
Just Drew.
I've brought him along for what
Okay.
I'm doing now. So
Okay.
he's helped.
We did a documentary as well. It was last January, right? Not the January before. Was it last January? Yeah, last January. About the Melonheads here in Ohio.
Okay.
Like I don't know if you've ever heard the Melonheads. They're like these.
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact,
yeah.
I was an executive producer on the anthology called Cryptids, which is
Okay.
Justin Seaman, who he does the Barn franchise.
Yeah.
That was one of the movies he worked on. Zane Hirschberger was like that was kind of his baby, but Justin was working on as well. But anyway, Melonheads is one of the group of cryptids that short film is done on in that movie. So
Oh,
if you haven't
awesome.
seen it, yeah, check it out.
I'll have
Joe
to.
Bob Briggs is kind of the main guy. He's in the wraparound, and it's a fun movie.
Yeah, we had one weekend, of course, like the worst snowstorm in the world happened, and Drew drove the whole way from. He drove about 4 hours from Pennsylvania out here to Cleveland to film this movie or this documentary. And basically,
Right.
we spent, we went out and we filmed this all in like the span of like 8 hours. And it turned out really good. And I think a really cool accomplishment is that. So the story, I'm not going to go full into it, but it's about Dr. Crow, who was like this doctor that like started to do some not so good experiments on kids and stuff like that. Well,
Right.
if you look online, everybody says, well, Dr. Crow never even existed. Well, we found his grave. So, and we tied it back to like his family line. And it is the Dr. Crow that would have been working at this original facility that existed out here near Richland, outside of Cleveland. So that was really cool. Walked around in the dark for a while. Stepped in some mud puddles. Didn't get attacked by a melonhead, unfortunately. But I think we're planning on doing one more documentary once the weather gets better about the melonheads, because there was some stuff that we weren't able to do because like it was so crappy. But so Drew's like the movie side, and then like I was originally going to do the documentary and involve Drew in it, and I think we have other stuff planned for documentaries as well. So
okay, cool. Well, I guess the point that I was gonna, well, I'll be honest, I kind of lost my train of thought.
Sorry,
we started talking about no. You don't have anything to be sorry about. I'm trying to think of the point that I was making. No, I got it. So I guess what I was gonna say is like being a filmmaker or involved somewhat in filmmaking, you kind of know how it goes. Like as much as you want to plan for what the next project is going to be, you really only have an idea of what it will be, and then invariably it almost always becomes something else. It's in my experience, it's rare that it's always exactly the film that we've wanted to make. But when we weren't able to do like the one that we really wanted to do, another door would open and we would end up making something else that was not necessarily expected. Now, so after we did 13 Slaves Till Christmas, the original idea was to go back to trying to do Devil's Night, because we have a finished script and it's a really good script, but we were going to rework it and retool it maybe somewhat to where maybe it wouldn't necessarily be the third installment. It would kind of be its own thing, because once again, it's an anthology. But what ended up happening is after doing 3 anthologies, our concern is that, are we going to be known as like the anthology guys? And we also wanted to go in a bunch of different directions. And then Eric came to me after 13 Slaves Till Christmas, which was the film that ultimately has done the best for us. It's just from a marketability standpoint and all that. And Eric came to me and said, hey, well, you had an idea for New Year's, which is the next holiday. So it just makes sense to maybe go in that direction instead of trying to go backwards and doing Devil's Night. What's this idea that you have for New Year's Eve? And as I'd said, like originally it was supposed to be an anthology, but I was kind of getting burned out on doing anthologies. As much fun as it was to do an anthology, when you kind of do the same thing over and over in that respect, you kind of crave to do something a bit different. And I know that I went to him and I said, look, I don't want this to be an anthology. Are you opposed to me like retooling it and revising the concept and coming up where it would be like a single narrative feature? And in a sense, it was easier for us to do anthologies because we're weekend warriors. Us, most of our crew, most of the actors that we know, everybody has day jobs. So it's just easier for us to shoot and film on the weekends. And that's how and you could do that with an anthology because you would start the weekend and by Sunday night, you finished an entire segment for the movie. So, it was a bit of a daunting task to figure out how we were still going to be able to keep that kind of shooting schedule, but also do something that was just one story with the same group of characters and keep that continuity and everything. But we wanted to challenge ourselves, and we put ourselves up to the task, and we were able to pull it off. And it ended up also being multiple firsts for us, and one of which being that the movie itself is a horror comedy. It wasn't planned to be a comedy whatsoever. But comedy is kind of my first love. I love the horror genre, but comedy is the other genre that I really gravitate towards. So me personally, whenever when I'm coping with something serious, I use humor as a coping mechanism. And I had a lot of bad stuff happen in my personal life leading up to writing the script. So when I sat down to write it, I had a lot of things I felt that I needed to just kind of get out of my system. And I used the script as an avenue to do that. But then along the way, as I was addressing these very serious personal issues and putting them into the script, I used a lot of humor to then kind of cope with also the things that were happening. And the film itself is a horror film and it is a slasher movie. But the killer himself he represents something that we all go through in life, which is change or loss, something that brings grief, something that happens very bad to you that is sudden and you don't see coming. And that's kind of what the character ultimately represents. So I used that slasher as a way to kind of tell about all these things that had happened to me because I went through a divorce and my mom died of double lung cancer. Well, she was diagnosed at the time, but oh, thank you. But we knew that it was bad and we didn't know what the outcome at the time was going to be. But she did end up passing away before we finished the film. So I used a lot of those aspects of my life, and I talked about them in the film. And so anyway, so I wrote the script and I sent it to Eric, and he got back to me and he was like, he said, "Yeah, I thought this was supposed to be like pure terror, all atmosphere." And he goes, "There's so many funny jokes. I was laughing the whole way." He goes, "There's no way this can really be just a straight like the horror film we were talking about making. It's more of a comedy even than it is horror in a lot of ways." And I said, "Well, then I guess we're making a horror comedy." And he was down for that because comedy is something that the two of us really wanted to tap into anyways, because we're always making jokes and razzing each other on set and stuff like that. So it ultimately ended up giving us an excuse to make also a comedy, which is so we got to work with both of the genres that we love the most, which is horror and comedy, and blend it all together and be able to tell kind of a deeper story where it's not just blood and gore for the sake of blood and gore. Now, there is a shit ton of gore and blood and killing in this movie. There's over 40 kills in the film.
Wow.
And it's all practical. It's all on screen because I'm a big proponent for practical effects. So we didn't do anything. I can't say we didn't do any digital anything. We did have somebody come in and do a few. Like there's like 43 visual effects shots, but they're like little minute touch ups and things. So it's something that unless somebody pointed it out to you, you wouldn't even know that it was that. So, but everything else is all the kills and everything is all practical. And I wanted everybody to have their own unique death and different ways of getting killed. and I wanted to be able to see it all on screen. And so the special effects team was we put them to the test, and they pulled it off. They did a fantastic job. And I ramble, as you can tell, so I apologize.
No, it's okay. I've had to mute a few times because the baby's like just telling me he doesn't want a bottle anymore, and I got to burp him.
Damn baby won't shut up.
Right. I know. You know what? I'm going to get you a box of condoms for Christmas.
Oh, we don't need those. Yeah, it's always the present you want the least that you get from the people you like the most. So.
Right. Well, I'm going to give you that, and I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to improve your pullout game.
Yeah, well, I'm holding the pull-out baby right now.
Step 1, pull out.
Or it could be just step 1, maybe skip the act altogether and just eat like a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
Step 2, actually pull out.
The sandwich always comes after the other step. Like
that is true.
It's the shower.
I don't smoke.
The shower of shame sandwich.
Right. Well, I'm 43, so I usually just jump right to the ham sandwich.
Okay, well, you got a couple of years on me still. Not that many, so maybe we'll hear.
Right.
I'll let you know a couple birthdays from now how that ham sandwich is going for me. But you said a couple of things that really struck like a chord with me, because obviously most of us, and I include myself in this, but it's really only the most loose, minute term to do so. But most of us who are in this indie horror game, like as you said, we're the weekend warriors. You get a day off and you try to get people together.
Right.
So which
did not work the last time.
no, but this isn't about us. The accomplishment of coming together with your narrative. So how long did it take to shoot is question 1. How many of your weekends did it take to fit in this film that has 40 some kills, and how did you manage to pull off the special effects and do that in great detail, because I'm still learning that side of it, and we're hilariously bad.
Tell me your secrets.
Bad enough that people like laugh and they're in on the joke with us, but I'd like for my stuff to look a little nicer. So I'm just always like using this as an avenue to almost kind of better myself and learn, get some advice while I'm hearing people's stories.
Do you know how many watermelons he's bought?
Look,
watermelon hit smashes, man.
You're not wrong, because I did this is a little sidebar, but I did a short slasher film in college, and I did a head smash where somebody got their head run over, and I went out and I bought a blonde wig, a cantaloupe, and beef liver, and I hollowed out the cantaloupe, and then I filled up the cantaloupe with a mixture of cottage cheese and beef liver, and that's how we did the head smash, and it looks great on camera.
I've not thought of cottage cheese, but that's good for
like the chunkiness for brains.
Yeah.
Then you put the fake blood in there and kind of mix it all up, and
then you can eat it afterwards. It's good for you.
Yeah, well, we would have had to have scraped it off the pavement, so we just kind of left it there.
It's
for the coyotes, right?
Now there's just a roaming band of coyotes.
We actually have those in Owensboro, believe it or not. We every now and then you'll look over and you're like, is that a dog? Holy shit, no, that's a coyote. They're just walking through town. It's so bizarre. But I mean, here's the thing. So when we all get it, I think a majority of us. Well, first of all, there's no illusion. If you're a creative of any kind, you have an ego. We all have an ego. And people that I'll listen to some filmmakers, or I'll be talking to some filmmakers, and they'll make the comment like, "Well, I don't have an ego," and I'm like, "You are full of shit." Every creative has an ego. I don't care if they say they don't or not. The thing is The difference is some can control it and manage it better than others. And I'll use this as an example. So when I first started making films, I had a hard time trusting anyone else because I knew I could do what I needed to get done. And I didn't feel like anybody else was going to be able to live up to that. But at some point, I had to get outside of myself and I had to start trusting other people. And then that's when I discovered that networking is key. And if you can find the right people who are just as passionate and hungry as you are to do this, and they're out there. Now, occasionally you're going to come across somebody who seems like they're at your level and you work really well with them, and that they've got their ego in check. And then the next thing you know, they're trying to hold your project over a barrel, and you have to have that unfortunate, like, look, you need to get your shit together or leave and not be a part of this project. And you're going to have those unfortunate conversations from time to time. But for the most part, I've found that the people that I've worked with, I've been extremely fortunate and lucky that once I opened myself up to being trusting towards others and realizing that I can't do everything on my own and that it really does take a village to put these things together and make them happen, that's when the projects started going from to better and better and growing and looking better and sounding better and better special effects. So it's taking those steps little by little and finding the right people, and they're out there. And so you had asked about the special effects. I mean, we've worked with multiple different special effects artists. We actually had somebody who was originally attached to the project, but then what happened is once she read the script, she was open and honest. She was like, "Look, there's so many kills in this. I don't know if I can pull off what you're needing to do." And it sucked that we weren't going to be able to work together on this project, but I mean, you can't not respect that kind of transparency. So, and it left us with plenty of time to try to find somebody else. So we started reaching out to some other filmmakers that are special effects artists that we already knew and had seen their work. And based off of what we knew we were going to watch, so, 'cause I'm a very visual filmmaker. I edit as we're filming because typically I'm the one editing the movies. So I kind of see how it's going to come together. So I have very specific shots in mind. So even though we have a director of photography, like Alex Clark did the photography on New Year's Eve, and he is phenomenal and incredibly talented, I worked very closely with him because there are very specific shots, and I like a lot of moving shots and dolly shots and stuff like that. So I'm coming to him and saying, while you're going to have a lot of input and you're going to be able to put your stamp on the film, because of how I'm planning to edit certain things, the kill scenes in particular, those are going to have a very specific kind of shot list that come with them. And he was very cool and open to it. And most everybody on the project was, I would say, I can't say most, all, because we had a really good experience with the cast and crew that we worked with. Were really good with collaboration. So, especially with like the special effects. So going into this, because there were so many kills, we had multiple meetings, conference calls, video conferences, where we literally went through every kill step by step. I mapped out the shots, mapped out the cutaways, talked to them about, how I'm like, in my head, here's how I see it being pulled off. And so it was Stephen Hodke, Issa Morales, and Blaze Bolden are the three main special effects artists who were on the project. And so we were having conference calls with them. And then I would say, okay, it starts like this, and then we cut away to this, and then comes back to this, and then we show this. And then we would go step by step. And then that gave them a really good idea as to the types of prosthetics that they needed to create, the types of weapons and things that they needed to put together. And we also had somebody else like working on props and things. So we had to work with them as well to make sure everything was streamlined and was going to work together. So everything, like all the weapons we had multiples of in case something broke, or because some special effects were done in a way to where it had to be done, step by step. So you would have like the hero knife where you see the whole blade and then half a knife because now the blade is almost all the way in. So yeah, so there was a lot of meetings, a lot of talk, a lot of pre-planning to pull off the special effects. And in the original version of the script, there were only 19 kills. What happened is we did a get killed in the film perk through the Indiegogo campaign, and we put it at $500 because we thought, you know, that's a decent price for being, because it's a decent price for what we were going to be doing with the film. Because if you got that perk and you came on the project, we weren't just going to bring you into the scene and then throw blood on you and that's all you paid $500 for. Like, you were going to get the works, you were going to get prosthetics, and then just the full experience, all the makeup, all that. So, and more than likely the kill was going to be like, a step-by-step process. So it wasn't going to take 5 minutes to do. I mean, we're talking hours. Like, we would have some kills where, we had one kill where it took us about 7 hours to film. And, so ultimately, like, we put the perk out there figuring maybe a few people would jump on it. By the time we had 23 people get killed in the film, we had to pull it. And then at that point, it went from 19 kills to over 40. And then, the other thing too is as those perks were coming through, I was then having to find a way to add another death into the movie. And the one thing that I can't stand is when a campaign forces the film to do something. So I had already kind of planned on maybe a handful of the kills to be incorporated into the movie organically. But then once we started getting more and more and more, so it is partially my fault because I'm a gorehound and I love a good kill and an elaborate kill. So Eric kept wanting to like cut it off, and I was going, no, we could do one more. No, we could do one more. Plus, I'm not going to lie, when you're trying to finance a movie and you're getting $500 every pop, it was hard to say no to that. But it finally got to a point where, as we were reaching that 23, I was struggling with finding ways to incorporate new, inventive, unique, and organic ways to kill people in the movie. So I finally went to Eric and I was like, all right, so we got to stop. We can't do anymore. Because at that point, I'm like, let's just kill somebody with a chair. Let's kill somebody with a fucking telephone, because I couldn't come up with anything better than that. Because the idea with the killer is he's the doctor, so his main way of dispatching victims is using medical implements. But after a while, you run out of that. So there's only so many bone saws and stethoscopes and things that you could use to actually murder someone with. So that's why eventually, when you're watching the film, you see him like kill somebody with a double-sided axe or hedge trimmers. But then I'm also real big in nuance. So the other thing that I did is I was also trying to come up with kills that could in some way homage slashers that came before it, because I love Easter eggs and I'm a big slasher fan. That's my favorite subgenre. And so like in the hedge trimmer kill, when he goes to kill them, we were able to recreate that iconic shot of when Cropsy lifts up the hedge trimmers and then you see him silhouetted with the hedge trimmers and everything. So we were able to do some stuff like that to where it worked out and it made sense to do it. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Like I said, with the special effects, it was a lot of planning and prepping. And then with the filming, we only filmed on weekends. We started the last weekend in January of 23, and we finished principal filming in July of that same year. But what we did was we were filming every other weekend and then and then sometimes we would skip 2 weekends because, somebody had a birthday or a bar mitzvah or, a circumcision or what? Sorry, my wife is staring at me. She's getting to see how exciting this is firsthand to watch somebody do a podcast. But
no, I routinely take off work for my circumcisions, so I understand.
Do you? Yeah, you want to just take a little bit at a time, because if you do it all at once, it's you're one and done. So if you circumcise yourself in small doses, that's the best way to do that. And if you get a mohel to do it, it's real interesting. I'll let you look that up. But
I think I know what that is, right? That's where they put their mouth on your wiener after, right?
Yes, that is exactly. That is a thing. No pun intended. So, but yeah, so what happened is we filmed every other weekend, and scheduling is a logistical nightmare. I hate scheduling. It fucking sucks. It's one of the worst things to do next to financing. I want to just write the movie and then make the movie. I hate all the in between and the waiting and the trying to figure shit out. Like I don't care for any of that stuff. But I like working with the cast, and like we got to do some rehearsals on this movie. We've never really had the opportunity to do rehearsals in the past, so that was cool to get to do with this film. But yeah, so the other thing too is because there were so many kills, the way we had to do it was we would have one weekend, or we would do like 2 weekends where it was all character building scenes and things like that, or chase scenes and stuff that didn't involve special effects. And then we would have to have one weekend where we brought in our crew because they came from Ohio, and the special effects crew, like that's all we did that weekend was we would just do kills and special effects all weekend. Now I can say, so like the first weekend that we filmed, which was the January weekend, that was also the same weekend that we had 31 extras from the Indiegogo campaign come in for this big group employee scene. Cause, we keep talking about New Year's Eve. Do you know what the movie's about?
Being scared on New Year's Eve.
We just learned about it today with your link.
Right. So 40 minutes into this episode talking about New Year's Eve. So what New Year's Eve is about, it's about 3 best friends who all work for the same company. It's days leading up to this mandatory New Year's Eve party that none of them want to actually go to. And unbeknownst to them, they're being stalked by a masked serial killer who is also being hunted by the FBI and the police. And ultimately, he follows them to this party, and they all get locked in the building. And of course, all hell breaks loose. So that's the basic concept for what New Year's Eve is. There's a lot more to it, but that's in a nutshell, a synopsis.
So, I mean, it's Die Hard.
Sort of, yeah. Just without Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess. Well, you know what? And it's so funny, and I don't want to give it away, but there is a direct reference to Die Hard in the movie. So it is so funny that you say that. But I won't give away what it is. No. No, oh, okay. but okay. when it's funny when you watch the movie with an audience, reactions vary from one to the next, and that's the funny thing. So like we would show the movie in Chicago, and it'd be like a packed theater, and they wouldn't laugh at one joke, and then they would laugh at another, and then you'd go to the next screening. We would be in like I don't know, Cincinnati, and show the movie there, and then what the people in Chicago didn't laugh at, the people in Cincinnati did, and vice versa. So it was really bizarre. But that particular Easter egg moment, you could always tell who got the reference, because it's pretty overt. Like if you're a fan of Die Hard, and if like most people are, it's obvious what this is homaging in the film. So it's definitely one that that people get. But it's funny because people almost always laughed at it because it kind of pops up out of nowhere. But it is funny that you said Die Hard because yeah, there is an homage to Die Hard in the film.
I'm curious. You mentioned that the slasher genre is like your favorite of the subgenre. Um, what what was kind of the inspiration for you to, you know, like let's go all the way to the beginning. Like how did you end up making movies, and what drew you to the genre altogether originally?
Um, so I started watching horror films when I was real young, probably like 5. So I had cool parents, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My grandmother in particular, and we called her Gigi, and she is who instilled a love of horror in me because I would always spend the night on the weekends at their house, and this was back in like the days of when TNT and TBS, so like Monster Vision and all that was real big.
Yeah.
So it was like every weekend we're watching Monsters, Tales from the Dark Side, The Hitchhiker, Ray Bradbury Theater, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And then of course Monster Vision, we'd watch that and we'd be up all night watching Joe Bob, watching, Nightmare on Elm Street marathons and stuff like that. And then as I got older and I started like buying these movies that I loved, same thing. I would be at their house and we would have, a Friday the 13th marathon or a Halloween marathon. So it wasn't necessarily slashers in the beginning. I mean, the movie that got me interested in the paranormal and just horror in general was Ghostbusters, which really is not a horror movie, but it kind of is. It's kind of it is in a way a gateway horror film. I feel like Monster Squad or The Gate, like some of those films.
Yeah.
Monsters Incorporated.
Yeah. So it's definitely like that's where my love started, and then of course it was nurtured by my grandmother, who was a huge OG horror fan. I mean, she grew up on like Twilight Zone and Outer Limits and all that stuff. Um, so she loved that genre, and there's really nobody else in our family that would spend that time with her watching that stuff and really gravitated towards it, and it ended up being me. So we became like scary movie buddies. And then when I got into my teens is when I decided like I wanted to be more involved with the visual arts. So my grandfather bought me a like an RCA camcorder. And then that was pretty much like where my love for visual storytelling took off. And that's kind of the rest is history. It started there. Now I started out doing comedies because I was in love. Like I'm a big Chris Farley fan, and like those film Dirty Work and all that stuff. Norm Macdonald's one of my favorite comedians, and
Yes.
and Mark Normand and Joe List and all them. They're kind of my newer favorite comedians and stuff. So anyway, so I love comedy, especially dark humor. I'm real big on dark and inappropriate humor. I feel like anything is up for grabs. And then I also feel, I mean, there can be some limitations depending. There is a difference between making a joke because it's funny and satirical, even if it's true and sometimes the truth hurts, and then just being an asshole. There is a difference between the two. And I think a lot of it is if your comedy is coming with malice and like malintent, then yeah, it's not really comedy. But other than that, I feel like pretty much anything. Um, I think anything can be discussed and anything can be made fun, made light of, especially if it's like done to where you're just having to face the reality of it, as much as it may hurt. And what sucks is I feel like, especially within the last decade, that a majority of society has like lost this ability to step back and laugh at themselves. And everybody takes themselves so seriously now. And everybody wants to be offended by so many things. And that's the weird thing. Like I'm offended by nothing. I mean, I'll use this as an example. Like, well, my mom, when she had cancer, her and I were joking about her dying of cancer because it was one of the, it was one of those. Did it suck? Did it hurt? Was it awful? Do I wish it never happened? Absolutely. But unfortunately, life comes at you, and 9 times out of 10, it comes at you fast. And you can sit down and curl into a fetal position and cry and whine and complain about how horrible it is, or you can face that reality to a degree. And here's the thing. I know for some people it's really difficult to do that because maybe they have some mental health issues or whatnot. I have it. I'm on anxiety medication and Cialis. They're not mutually exclusive. But anyway, the I guess the point I'm trying to make is just people just need to have more self-deprecation, and less self-importance. And I think the world would be a little bit of a better place, or even not a better place. At least maybe we can laugh a little bit more. We need to get back to the days of Mel Brooks and Trading Places and those kinds of American Pie. Like those are the movies that I think are that's my kind of comedy. But and that's the kind of comedy that you'll see in New Year's Eve too. So
yeah. I mean, I shit on myself all the time. Like when I introduce myself to new people, I'm always
I saw the Reddit page where you wear diapers. So
yeah, he was speaking literally. He's not even. He's one of the.
No, I actually do shit myself.
That's what I. I didn't think you were talking about doing it vocally. I knew you were talking about actually shitting your pants. So.
Yeah, I have IBS, so I do actually
awareness month, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is. No, it's this month.
Look, here's the deal. We all trust that one fart that we shouldn't have.
Well, the problem is that I trusted it before I even felt it, so it was just coming straight out of me, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the comedy now, like if you watch SNL now, and my opinion is that for the most part, it's garbage. The stuff that's on SNL, it's really not funny.
No, the Shane Gillis episodes have been pretty funny.
Well, Shane Gillis
he's on there,
funny, but he's in line with like the Norm Macdonald kind of comedian.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, Norm was banned from The View. If you remember that correctly, he got banned from The View for making fun of The View on The View.
Right. Well, I think the other thing too is there was that episode where he kept talking about how Bill Clinton had murdered a guy, and the Clintons had murdered a guy, and they kept trying to get him to stop, and he wouldn't. But I mean, that was what was so great about Norm Macdonald, because it was like he was like, I'm not trying to shit on Andy Kaufman, but it was like he was like Andy Kaufman, but perfected the Andy Kaufman shtick. You know what I mean? Like, so even when he didn't seem like he was riffing or doing an act, he was, and he was able to expertly bring people into what was happening and have them react in exactly the way that he was hoping they would. Because for me, that's part of it too. It's like, there are times where I will say something or make a joke. Well, I made the cream pie joke, before this. And I mean, I make jokes like that because there are certain subject matters, things that people don't think that should be talked about, like in a public setting. So when you but I'll use this as an example, like pornography. I think most people have some sort of basis of what pornography is, or they've experienced it firsthand, sometimes continuously, but nobody just talks about it because it's like this taboo thing, right? But most people at least have a foundation, but they don't expect it to be talked about and discussed. So what happens is when you bring that out into the light, some people are just so shocked and appalled, and they can't believe that something was just said. That takes the humor to the next level, and that even a minute comment can get an incredible reaction out of somebody, and that makes it that much more funny. because it's supposed to be reactionary. It's supposed to make you feel something.
Are you familiar with Dave Landau, the comedian?
No.
He kind of got his start working with Steven Crowder with Louder with Crowder.
Okay. Yeah.
But I saw him in Cleveland almost a year ago, and it was the funniest comedy show. But the thing was, like, his jokes were all meant to get, every single one was meant to trigger and get a response from the city Cleveland crowd, and it worked. People were getting kicked out of the show because they were so viscerally mad about like a joke. He made a joke about like, oh, nurses, yeah, that's the profession when slut doesn't work out, you know. And that made such a there were people in the crowd like freaking out that he made that joke, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, you guys came to a comedy show and you're mad?
Yeah, but see, I think now in a lot of ways that works more effectively for the comedian, because that's why crowd work, I feel like in a lot of ways is it started with hecklers and now it's become more like crowd work. But ultimately, like, that's what I don't get. Like, who goes to a comedy show not knowing what to expect? I feel like we all have access, or at least 99% of us have access to the internet. So if you're planning on going to a comedy show, it takes 30 seconds to Google someone and look at a YouTube video to kind of see what they're all about. It takes very little effort to do that. But I think a lot of the problem is with most people, and social media, it really is a cesspool. But like, clickbait is just that. Even the news has caught on that most people won't read the articles, so they just write a headline to get shares because people have a knee-jerk reaction. Because even most of the time anymore, even if you read a headline for a story that someone has shared and they're like, oh my God, this, and then you actually take time to click on the article and read it, the article half the time is not even anything about the title of the article or what the title is. It's skewed one way, but the article's something, it's similar, but not it. I mean, so I feel like that's why you have these people, these hecklers who go, you know, there shouldn't be hecklers or people getting pissed off at comedy shows now. Like back in the 80s when you didn't have the internet, or even the early 90s when you didn't have the internet and you couldn't research a comedian quickly. Yes, I can understand there being a heckler or someone being offended, but now you should not be offended if you go to a comedy show. But as with, I think, social media pulls the narcissism out of all of us. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, social media is, hey, look at me, look at what I'm eating, look at what I just shit, look at my kids,
my pants,
even if it's about your kids, it's still about you at the end of the day. So that's kind of what hecklers are doing. They're taking a show which is about what's supposed to be about a large group of people enjoying someone that they went to see, and they take the situation and they make it about them because now suddenly they're offended, but they're not speaking for everyone. They're only speaking for themselves. So to me, there's nothing more narcissistic than that, than taking a scenario that's supposed, and it's no different than someone who films themselves giving a homeless person a fucking sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, just give the homeless person the sandwich. Why do you have to show the whole world that you gave the homeless person a sandwich? You're only doing it because
my YouTube video first.
Right. Like and subscribe. That's what it's about. It has nothing to do with the fact that you gave a person a sandwich. It's because you want people to know you gave a homeless person a sandwich because you care and you matter. So anyway.
Right. Yeah.
That's my soapbox speech.
Kind of adjacent to that is there's a movie that came out a couple years ago with Joe Curie from Stranger Things called Spree, where he was a social media influencer who started to like kill people to get people to watch his stream. Which kind of, I think touched on that in a really creative way. David Arquette is in that movie too, plays his dad.
Yeah, he
If you haven't
is.
seen it,
I haven't
it's
seen that.
awesome. It's in
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
I think RLJ or RJE, I can't remember. Used to be able to get like all of those movies at like Dollar Tree. Like, it was
Right.
There was an insane renaissance of Dollar Tree physical releases that post COVID were happening quite a bit. I remember Spree was one of them.
Right. Well, I know, like back when the whole like I'm offended stuff really started popping up, and you saw a lot of people coming to prominence for, you know, being Karens or annoying or what they're pissed off about and all that stuff. The people who essentially became the newer stereotypes of individuals that you see on like YouTube and social media. There was a movie that came out, I think it was called like Assassination Nation or something along those lines, but it was Brian Doyle Murray, where he finally got fed up with these types of annoying people and or people who are just assholes and he would just pull a gun out and shoot and kill them. And it was a but the majority of the people that he's killing in the film are like, they're not really innocent people in the sense like they're all assholes or they're deplorable types of people. So it's one of those, it's like he's an anti-hero because he's murdering, but he's also murdering people that are just straight trash people.
Just people we wish we could murder in our day-to-day
life. And that's the thing. Like I'm not advocating murder, but it was just really interesting that movie came out because it was right around the time where it was like people were having the discussions like, yeah, this type of person really gets on my nerves. And then this movie came out where he's like, and then he ends up like befriending this younger girl, and he takes her under his wing, and she's kind of in the same thought process as him, and he's like molding her to do the same. So it's like this, it's kind of a weird skewed superhero kind of a tale, but you know, or like even Dexter, because we've been rewatching there. I rewatched the first 4 seasons, but I had never watched anything after that. And my wife Leslie, she hadn't seen it at all, and she's like huge into true crime and stuff. So we started watching Dexter, and that's the thing. That's the great thing about the show, is because like he's murdering people, but at the same time, they're people that deserve it in a way. So it's like this
Saw, right? The Saw movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it was people that he thought deserved it, not saying
right. Like it has a twisted moral understory as to why it's happening, which I think is ingenious. But at the same time, it's like, I don't feel like every crackhead probably deserves to die just because they could. I mean, yes, are they taking their own life for granted? Absolutely. But
Joe, I saw you cough into your hand the last week. Now you must reach into this barrel of eels and barbed wire to pull out a napkin.
I want to play a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I think if you can be a crackhead and not hurt anybody, you know, if you're just cracking in the comfort of your own home.
That was the one victim was just, that's all he was just a crackhead. I think.
Right. And that's, you know,
the second movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, there were people that were being put into traps and stuff in Saw that were like just assholes and bad people. So it's not everybody was necessarily like an innocent person, or, you know, taking their life for granted. I think a majority of the time, like, they were also doing other bad things. Like, you know, they were a crackhead, but they were stealing and hurting other people by making poor decisions with their own lives. So I think there's definitely a morality tale there. Cause I mean, I had a similar situation where back in 2018, went out of town on a family vacation. We came home. I got sick and we came home early, and I came home to find my house had been broken into and totally ransacked. And I mean, it looked like a poltergeist was in my house. Every cabinet was open. Every drawer was open. Our refrigerator had been gone through. Our deep freeze had been gone through. They went through my movie collection and they cherry picked all the Scream. Yeah, they cherry picked all the Scream Factory releases and they left the movies but took the slip covers.
This was a pro. eBay. This was a professional.
Right. And they stole my wedding photos. That's so weird. It was like they took some things that I thought were like very personal, and they stole all the autographed props from my movies, which were worthless. And I don't know what they were planning on doing. I mean, I guess maybe they thought that they were going to be able to get something for it, but all the props that were autographed, it was from like Volumes of Blood and Horror Stories at the time.
No. Well, there's a reason that I'm using a fake background because they're all framed behind me.
Are they? Oh, well, I hope they brought you lots of joy. But what's funny is like while at the end of the day it's just stuff. I did have a talk with like the police, and I was trying to connect dots, and the police officer was like, "Look, you're going to just drive," because I thought it was someone who knew us. And the officer was like, "Look," he's like, "I'm just going to be honest with you." He said, "I know there's some weird things that this person took." He said, "But look at all the other stuff that they took that isn't personal to you and doesn't make sense." He said, "You're just going to have to come to terms with the fact that more than likely this was just some random druggie that broke into your house and stole your stuff. And while it does look calculated in some ways, most of it's not." He goes, "That happens in 90% of the break-ins we have with homes. There are items that look calculated, so people go, oh, it's got to be somebody I know, but really, like, we'll actually catch the person, and it's some random total stranger that was, hopped up on smack, and they just decided to break into the house." So based off that conversation, I then assumed it was some random crackhead who broke into my house, and then that really pissed me off. But then, like, I saw the effect that it had on my family. Like, my youngest, Connor, who's, he's almost 14 now, but at the time, like, he's just a little kid. So it really affected him to where he started having like heart palpitations and like PTSD type effects. And like, he didn't want to come to the house. We had to take him to the hospital to get an EKG. And I'm going to tell you what, I work for a law firm, and I butted heads with our criminal defense attorney because he and I had some very serious conversations on more than one occasion where I was like, I don't care who the crackhead is. They need to just be done away with, and I'm not talking about incarcerated, but I'm not saying that because, like, once again, I'm advocating for someone to be disposed of. I saw the direct effect, and this is, at this point, it's not spoiler alert, but like Jigsaw or John Kramer, when that drugged out guy broke into the clinic and then caused his fiancée to have a miscarriage, those things will have a very negative effect, because now it's like, you're not just on the outside looking in going, oh, it's just, it's this person, they've got a disease, and, it's sad and it's unfortunate. And while it is those things, now you have an emotional connection to it, right? Because he's the dad who just lost his kid because of said crackhead. So sometimes it's like, when emotion is involved and it's very personal, doesn't necessarily matter what the circumstances are, that they grew up in an abusive household, or they were in foster care. It's like, I mean, I've been around drugs my entire life. I've had friends who did drugs. I've had friends who've gotten involved in very heavy drugs. And anytime in my entire life, when I was asked, If I want to do drugs, I said no. It's real easy. It's real easy not to do something that you've never done before that will hook you and turn you into a piece of shit. That's how I look at it. But unfortunately, not everybody is me. So, so some people make poor choices. And while I don't think that, a crackhead who's going to break into somebody's house, now should be taken in the street and shot, I can see that line of thinking. I've been in that frame of mind because I've been there. I've seen what someone else making a bad choice, and I work for a living, so I earn my shit. I don't have to break into somebody's house and steal it from somebody else because I've earned it. So I look at other people who do those things and I'm like, get a job and earn your own shit instead of stealing it from me. It's not hard. But then again, maybe it is hard. I don't know. I mean, is it hard to get a job at McDonald's? I would think not, because my oldest son, who is autistic, has a job at McDonald's. So
I don't know if I have
rather than he look, my oldest son has a bunch of different mental health issues, and he has a lot of things that were stacked against him. And he is on different medications for, things he has no control over, but he lives with a roommate. He pays his bills. Yes, he does have some help, but he has a job that he can keep. And I'm like, if my kid can do it, any crackhead can do it.
Yeah,
that's, at least I think so.
I'm still trying to process, like, how does this conversation with these police go when you're trying to explain, like, no, you don't understand. That Sleepaway 3 slipcover is out of print. I can't get that, dude.
I know. I was like, I have the Burning Blu-ray case, but I need the variant artwork, because you can't just, now if I want it back, I got to get on eBay and pay $175 for it, and I got it for $20 originally. It's bullshit.
It sounds like this story was a little bit before everybody started trading rights for 4Ks, and now all of those slips are worthless again. But, like,
true.
Man, I would be so angry if all of that, like, heavy story aside, PTSD aside, I would be pissed if my slipcovers got stolen and the cop is clearly not giving a shit because it's a piece of cardboard that goes over a movie that nobody cares about anymore. Like,
well,
don't you have
I can't. I mean, in the Owensboro Police Department's defense, he didn't. I can say this: he did not care. Like the officer that I dealt with, in terms of like taking him around the house and kind of showing him what was taken and what and all that. Like, he was really nice and really cool and understanding and all that. So he didn't give off like an air of I don't give a shit at any point. He understood. I mean, we were violated. So he got it. He got the emotion. He understood while we were trying to make a connection, because that's the thing. Like, when something happens to you, you want that closure. It's the same reason why people hate ambiguous, or not everybody, but a lot of people hate ambiguous endings. Like, they don't want that. They want to be told what happened and given a definitive ending. They want that closure. So when something like that happens, you're like, oh, suddenly you're Sherlock Holmes. You're like, I'm going to find out why this happened and who did this to me. And, so so the cop got it, like, he understood, but at the same time, he's like, I'm sure he's heard it a million times. But then again, at the same time, it always goes back to, then you see police talk about murder, and if the wife or a husband is murdered, 9 times out of 10, it's the spouse that does it. I mean, you hear them, you hear FBI and law enforcement talk about that all the time, that most of the time, if a child is kidnapped, it's a family friend who does it. So it's usually, if you're wronged in some way, it seems like most of the time it's somebody who's close to you or knows you. But then on a rare occasion, a crackhead will kick your door in and steal your Scream Factory slipcovers. Damn it.
That is.
And your wedding photos.
Yeah, but you can take more pictures.
Wedding
with your
photos
wife,
are
man.
so weird.
Yeah, and a BB gun. They took a BB gun I had. I really
Probably
liked that
thinking
BB gun.
Real gun. Yeah.
It did
This
kind of look like a
slipcover
real
thing is
gun.
bugging me. I don't think they did due diligence here. I think that they just said this was a crackhead. These people knew what they were doing. There's 2,000 of those in existence in the entire world. Nobody just randomly takes cardboard off of a movie. If they're going to try to sell a movie to buy crack, they're going to take the movie.
Right. Well, the other thing too I mean, as you can tell, I've got a lot of movies. This is just like a fraction of what I actually own. I own like 4,000 Blu-rays or something. But they're almost all in storage right now because we got married in September, and I sold my house, moved into her house, and we're in the process of like trying to find our own place and all this stuff. So a lot of my stuff is like in storage or put up. And but at my old house, I had like a whole movie room. So when you walked in there, it was movies, like wall to wall movies. And I was in the process of reorganizing. So when you walk into the room, like right there on a shelf was a stack of about probably like 20 drama movies that I had. That was all they took. Really, they stole this random stack of 20 drama Blu-rays, the Blu-ray inserts for my Scream Factory releases. Oh, they stole a couple of autographed. I had an autographed Friday the 13th box set that they stole. They stole the original Nightmare on Elm Street box set that I had released, and then they took like my Marvel movies and my Star Wars movies, and they left everything else.
Yeah.
And from what the police said, they were at the house for like unencumbered for like 3 days, so they could have easily have. The police were saying they were like there for days. And see, that was the other thing. Like the reason he said that he believes it was some random crackhead was because he said what gave it away was that all of our cereal boxes were opened and our deep freeze had been gone through. And he said the reason that they did that was because people who have drugs and money hide them in cereal boxes and deep freezes. They're deep freezers. Yeah. So that's what they were looking for, drugs and money in those areas.
Have you ever? I don't know if you know about this or not, but there's a thing called a security system.
We had one after the fact.
Back in the...
Oh yeah, we got ADT almost immediately after that happened.
You need the Roomba home defense system where it's just a gun strapped to a Roomba. I have.
Yeah, I should just paid my brother to stay at the house. That's what I should have done. But then again, they probably would have just stolen. No, he's too lazy to do that.
They would have stolen your brother.
Maybe. That'd be the best thing that ever happened to my parents, actually. So
it's a kidnapping. We're gonna need a ransom.
Well, except
you keep it, man. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it'd be the best thing that happened to my parents, except my mom, because she's dead. So thanks for bringing it up.
My mom's dead too.
Yeah.
All right, high five.
The dead parent posse.
The dead mom club.
Dead parent club. Yep.
Unfortunately,
ironically, based on the based on the conversation, it's kind of ironic too, because my mom died of a drug overdose, and my dad died from stage 4 cancer years back. So, very kind of similar stories in that regard.
Right. When did you say your mom passed away?
I was 17, so this is about 16 years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, then she wasn't the one. She wasn't the one who broke into my house then.
No, she wouldn't have known anything about slipcovers.
Okay, fair enough.
One of those
Fair enough.
for jewelry.
I'm still trying to connect dots, so.
I have all your slipcovers. They're currently on the eBay store. But
as soon as we're done with this, I'm checking out your eBay store. If I get on there and I find my grandfather's Purple Heart, I'm gonna know.
And it is deactivated.
Deleting my eBay.
All right, man, we got off on a tangent there. But
we really did. I just realized that we talked a lot about New Year's Eve, and then I said a whole bunch of stuff that's probably going to either get me fired or canceled, and now we're at a crossroads.
Yeah. So to bring it back, let's we'll give you opportunity to kind of promote all your stuff, all of your links, all of your Indiegogos. All your campaigns and stuff.
Okay.
This one peed through his diaper.
Which we'll put. Oh, nice. Me too. Which we'll put everything in the video, so anybody watching or listening, it'll be in the description.
Cool. Yeah. So right now, Eric and I both, we are producing The Barn Part 3. So anybody who's familiar with that franchise. It is the third and final installment. Last year we got to go to Pennsylvania for about 8 days and help Justin on set and run around in a cornfield in the cold and freeze our asses off. And both Eric and I have. Now I actually have a cameo in the second movie. I got to work with the Diana Prince, or Darcy, the mail girl. So she's super cool. I got to work directly with her. Or act against her, and it was a ton of fun. And then in this one, I'm a different character, so we kind of hide who I am. So if you find a way to catch me in the second one, but I do get killed in the third one as well. And Eric also makes a cameo, but I mean, it's got Courtney Gaines in it from The Burbs and Children of the Corn, Sweet Home Alabama. Just trying to throw some out there. And then Kelly Maroney is also in it, and she's Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Chopping Mall, Night of the Comet. And unfortunately, we didn't get to work with Kelly, but we did get to be there while Courtney was there, and that was really cool. We got to hang out with him, and he's a really nice guy, and he does a solid job in the movie. So this is The Barn Part 3, which is currently still on Indiegogo, the campaign, so you can check it out. You can look it up, The Barn Part 3 on Indiegogo. Or if you go to like the Barn's social media pages, you can check that out, or our personal social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that. And you can follow any links, because there's tons of really cool, like unique perks and all that, and autographed stuff. So we're actually about to announce some new names to the project, but I can't say just who yet, but definitely it's one you want to check out. The special effects in it are phenomenal. Cody Ruck is the one. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. I'm also producing another Tory Jones, his most recent film. It's kind of a reboot of the Wicked one. It's called The Boy from Below, and I got to go hang out on set when they were filming that one, and Cody was there doing special effects then also. He's an insanely talented special effects artist, so if you get a chance to check out his stuff, definitely do that. But he's doing the special effects for The Barn 3, and it's, I mean, the stuff he built for the movie, just, it looks awesome. And so I'm really excited about that movie. They're still filming. There's I think a dozen or so days left, and there's some stretch goals that we're trying to hit. So definitely check that out. And then another film I'm producing, Eric has nothing to do with it because he has poor taste. It's called The Last Sleepover. It's a slasher film. And it's I really liked the script. It's not a throwback, but it has a lot of 90s slasher vibes going on in it. and it's kind of a high school reunion gone bad. And Felissa Rose is in it. Of course, she's Terrifier 2, Sleepaway Camp. She's also in New Year's Eve. So I've gotten to work with her on the set of New Year's Eve, and here pretty soon, coming up in May, I'll be on their set, hanging out with them and helping out. And that film is also trying to secure funds on Indiegogo. So same thing. Look up The Last Sleepover. It's a really cool project, and if you like slasher movies, then it's definitely one that you want to check out. They have a really like our movie with the Doctor, which is a plague doctor meets Jack the Ripper kind of hybrid. They also have a really cool stylized killer called Scarlet, and she's really like there's pictures of her and stuff. They just went to Horror Hound a couple weeks back, and they had her walking around, and that was pretty awesome because she has a really cool look. And then trying to think, I'm producing another film that has yet to be announced, so that's going to be popping up in the next week or two. Of course, it's a short, but it's being done out of LA, and it's another filmmaker that I've worked with before. And then another film that I have already worked on is with Ricky Glore. It's called Sweetmeats, and it is a horror comedy musical, and it got picked up by Troma. And then it's on tour. Troma's doing this Hands Across Tromerica tour, where they're taking Sweetmeats out and going around doing screenings with it, and then they're showing some other movies that they've picked up, so it's kind of like a mini Troma film festival, which is cool because they got the remake of the Toxic Avenger that's going to be coming out not too long from now, and I think that's about it as far as projects. But yeah, if you want to find out more about myself, you can look me up on Facebook. If you want to reach out, that's where I'm most accessible. You can also reach out to us at bloodmoonpictures.com. You can contact us via the website. And if you are interested in I guess more of who I am, the things I've worked on or am currently working on, you can I hate saying this because it just, once again, it's that ego narcissism thing I was talking about earlier. You can Google my name and all kinds of stuff comes up. And that's kind of the best way to find out more about me, I guess. But yeah, staying busy, probably too busy, but I do it to myself, so I can't complain too much.
That's the right. Oops, everybody scared the baby. That's the right kind of grind, though.
Accidentally punched the baby.
We've heard about you scaring the baby. I've seen the Reddit page.
Yeah.
Oh no, I made Reddit already.
It's right below the one about me shitting my pants.
Right. I think you're scaring the baby is a Pornhub category now.
Whoa.
I do a lot of that over the last 8 months. So.
Drew just casually eating baby food, by the way.
Oh, that's his OnlyFans?
Yes. Yeah.
I would pay to see that.
I would.
You should do one where you
pay
just
$6.99 a month.
Maybe. Wait, did you say $69 a month or $6.99 a month?
Okay.
Okay, because I would pay as much as $69 a month, as long as you're dipping your feet into the baby food.
Oh man!
Yikes!
We just invented a new genre
Yikes.
right now. If the internet exists, this must also
That's
exist.
Right.
Right on. Well, yeah, no, that's an impressive resume there, and everybody check it out. This is a fun conversation. Cool dude. Worked with a lot of the people that I haven't worked with, but I've hung out with and met. Felissa in particular was very fond of me with the day that I met her. She's super cool, really nice chick.
Oh yeah, Felissa's a sweetheart. She's almost too positive. There might be something going on there. I'm not sure, but I'll take it because a really good positive attitude, just nonstop, is hard to find anymore. She's not jaded by the industry or the process, or if she is, she keeps it behind closed doors. Because she was great to work with on set. And we were at HorrorCon about a month ago, and she was there. And I mean, as soon as she saw me, she lit up and gave me a hug and was talking to me about the last sleepover and how excited she was to be working on it. And she was like, "You better be on set while I'm there." So yeah, it was always cool. And then and the other thing is, so Jeffrey Reddick, who created the Final Destination franchise, he's also in New Fear's Eve, and he's a producer on the movie. And he's been instrumental right now with helping Eric and I through the distribution process. He's been helping us out in that arena. And he's become a really good friend. I met him back in, it's like 2015. I reached out to him, and we ended up kind of going back and forth on email, and then eventually started talking on the phone and became quick friends. And it's been surreal because I've Final Destination franchise is one of my favorites. I'm kind of a self-diagnosed hypochondriac, so those films always had like a really visceral effect on my anxiety level. And so it was weird that eventually I would become friends and now like colleagues slash producing partners with the guy that created all that, who's and I tell him all the time, I'm like, if the day you pass away, they're going to put a log truck on your tombstone. So, because it's really cool to like be friends with someone who has had such an impact on popular culture, and he's definitely one of those. And he's just a genuinely super nice, generous guy. Like he's really cool, and so it's just the whole. That's the thing. Like even if like did I want to be Steven Spielberg when I started this whole thing? Absolutely. I mean, who doesn't? But that's not what happened. But instead, I just continued to follow my dreams, and they of course, I had to make compromise in other ways, and followed a different path, but I still followed the dream. And now I'm like friends with industry professionals, and the funny thing is at one time, like going out to LA and New York was the way to go. Like that's how you broke into the business, and you don't have to do that anymore. So much so that like LA is almost a place where most movies aren't even made anymore. Like the industry is actively seeking filmmaking opportunities everywhere else but California, because it's just so expensive there. It's like it's more cost effective to do it other places. So with the advent of technology and the accessibility of things, I mean, in some ways it has flooded the market with everybody and anybody who thinks they can be a filmmaker. And I'm not saying that you can't be, but let's be honest. Not everybody can make a good movie, or at least even a decent movie. It's a difficult process.
No, kid.
I wasn't talking about you guys, but I mean, look, and that's not me shitting on anybody, because I mean, art can also be. It's not everybody enjoys the same thing. So even in some ways, I kind of do hold like I would consider myself, even though I'm an independent filmmaker, like closer to something more like mainstream with the types of stuff that I do. And there's people out there who do like the more grindhouse, trauma back in their heyday, sleazy type of films. And, they have a following. Like there's people who crave that genre and that type of film. So, I mean, if you find your niche and you're good at it, there's no reason not to do it and exploit it. If you have the ability and the talent and the wherewithal to make it happen. So
yeah, and you have certainly done that. You made it happen. You have a nice little resume. You are certainly living the dream. It's definitely something that every time I speak with somebody of that caliber, like it gives me hope. I had given up on this for a really long time, and it wasn't until the last year and a half, 2 years maybe, where I started to kind of like get back into this and start to focus and make this my thing. And I kind of have had that same thing where so my favorite movie possibly of all time is Street Trash, and I am someone who, at the drop of a hat, can go have a conversation with Frank Farrell, who produced Street Trash, and Donald Farmer is another one who through this show I've gotten, he
also in our latest movie.
Yeah, Donald and Frank are both in our movie, so it's like super cool.
I'm waiting for you to get done.
But we can. We'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll share all your links and stuff. And
cool.
I
really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come on the show and asking me to be a part of it, and giving me a platform to rant and be ADHD.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
We love when the guests talk, so we don't have to.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too.
The preceding program has been brought to you by the Watchers Podcast Network. If you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends to help grow our network. Check us out on all social media platforms, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, thanks for your support.